Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now on Saturday, there was a Mountain West game between the Boise State Broncos traveling on the road at the Wyoming Cowboys. Who do I think is going to win this game? Let's break it down. Now Boise State is 7-3 and 6-0 in the Mountain West to start this season. Andy Avalos has done a decent job at Boise State, but Boise State has taken a step back from when Brian Harsin and Chris Peterson were coaching at Boise State, and they need to rebound to get back to where they used to be because Boise State is a fantastic program, but they are still having a pretty good season. And they lost at Oregon State 34-17 in week 1. That was a tough loss. Oregon State's having a really good season, and Boise State could not win. But then they won at New Mexico 31-14, and then they beat Tennessee Martin 30-7, so good wins there. Then they lost at UTEP 27-10. That was a tough loss, probably their worst performance of the season. And then they won against San Diego State 35-13, and that was a good win. Then they beat Fresno State 40-20, and then they won at Air Force 19-14, and then they beat Colorado State 49-10. So as you can see, Boise State's trajectory is starting to go back up. But then they lost to BYU 31-28. That was a tough loss because BYU is having kind of a rough season for their standards as well. But still, that wasn't a bad result for Boise State. They just probably would have been really good to get the win. But then they won at Nevada 41-3, and that was a good win, because Nevada is really struggling in the Mountain West this season. And in that Nevada game, quarterback Taylor Green had 218 yards and a touchdown and 22 rushing yards and a touchdown. He's a dual-threat quarterback. He's been pretty solid since Hank Bachmeier, the quarterback at the beginning of the season for Boise State, entered the transfer portal. Taylor Green's really solid. If he can continue to not turn the ball over, then he's a pretty decent quarterback. Running back George Holani at 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's a really good tailback for Boise State. Wide receiver Billy Bowens at 67 yards and a touchdown. So Boise State has good players on offense still, but their offense does need to improve a little bit more if they're going to continue to be the best Mountain West program. And on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker DJ Strand 6 tackles, and safety Rodney Robinson at 6 tackles for Boise State. Against Nevada, Boise State's defense still has a lot of talent as well. They are very talented on both sides of the ball. Boise State just needs to improve a little bit if they still want to be the best Mountain West program. Now on the Wyoming side, they're 7-3 and 5-1 in the Mountain West to start this season. And Craig Bohl at head coach, he's had a decent tenure at Wyoming. He's been up and down. Obviously, the Josh Allen year was probably one of the highlights of his tenure, but they're having a really good season this year as well because they only went 7-6 last year, and they're doing much better. They lost at Illinois 38-6 in week 0. That was a tough loss because Illinois is having a pretty good season in the Big Ten. They were not competitive. Then they beat Tulsa in overtime 40-37, and that was a good win, even though it was a close win over a team that's not so great in the American. And then they won against Northern Colorado 33-10. Then they beat Air Force 17-14. But then they lost at BYU 38-24. That was a tough loss because, again, BYU's not having one of their better seasons, but still, they didn't get blown out in this game, so that's, I guess, not a terrible loss. Then they lost to San Jose State 33-16. Another tough loss. San Jose State is a really good Mountain West program. But now they've won 4 in a row. Then they beat New Mexico 27-14. They beat Utah State 28-14. They won at Hawaii 27-20, and they won at Colorado State 14-13. All good wins for Wyoming, even though a lot of them were close wins against teams that are not very good in the Mountain West. A win is a win. And in that Colorado State game, quarterback Jaden Clemens at 90 yards and a touchdown, 32 rushing yards and a touchdown. He's a decent quarterback. He was not the quarterback at the beginning of the season. That was Andrew Peasley. But both quarterbacks have kind of struggled for Wyoming, and they have not really gotten the passing game going too well. But Jaden Clemens can at least run the football a little bit, and he is a decent quarterback. Running back Titus Swin at 73 yards, and tight end Parker Christensen at 32 yards for Wyoming. Against Colorado State, Wyoming's offense needs to improve. They're not terrible on offense, but they need to improve if they want to be one of the top Mountain West programs. And on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker Easton Gibbs at 3 tackles, cornerback Cameron Stone at 7 tackles for Wyoming against Colorado State. And Wyoming's defense has been pretty solid this season. They've gotten a lot of timely stops to help them win games, but their offense can just improve a little bit, and Wyoming can be really good. So who do I think is going to win this game? This game is at Wyoming, and that helps Wyoming. They have a pretty decent home environment. That's going to be very tough for Boise State, but Boise State's the more talented team. Boise State's still a very good Mountain West program. They might not be the program that they were a few years ago, but they still have a lot of talent. They still have a lot of great players, and they're still playing pretty good football this season. And Wyoming's schedule kind of shows that they're maybe not as good as the record suggests. They've beaten a lot of bad teams by touchdown or so. They've barely won a lot of these games against teams that are not very good. I think Wyoming is a really good team and they're having a great season, but their offense is really struggling at times. And again, they're beating bad teams by a fairly small amount. They're not blowing out these teams. Boise State has had better results against the same teams that Wyoming has played against. So I'm going to go with Boise State to beat Wyoming 31-28. I think Wyoming can win this game. I think their home field advantage is going to really help them out. I think it's going to be a very close game. I think Wyoming's going to really play hard in this game to try to beat Boise State. I think Craig Bohl is a really good team, and they're playing pretty decent football this season. And I think their defense is really good, but their offense is just going to struggle just enough in this game. Boise State's going to score just a little bit more than Wyoming. Boise State's going to find a way to win. Andy Avalos still has a really talented team at Boise State, and their offense and defense is just a little bit better than Wyoming's. And I'm going to go with Boise State to beat Wyoming 31-28. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Boise State or Wyoming is going to win this game and why. And I will see you next time.